Hello and welcome to another episode of Honest to a Malt with myself, Duncan Donuts at Whisky Tip. Currently a 3 out of 10 on the tan scale. Mike, known as Tupuds at Whisky Wings, currently a -5 out of 10 on the tan scale. And this week we've got a special guest, Paul Main, brand ambassador for Ardnahoe, obviously owned by Hunter Laing, and he is a 12 out of 10 on the tan scale. He is putting us to shame. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks very much. Who knew that the weather would be so good in Glasgow?
You claim it's raining, and yet you are glowing all the time.
Yeah. It's good lighting in this room. That's all it is, Duncan. Good to see you both.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks very much for coming back on again. Your second time on the pod.
Yeah, listen, that's a silver medal at this point in time, so take that.
You're now neck and neck with Libby.
Yeah, neck and neck with Libby, one behind Ben. Have you been watching any of the Olympics, Paul?
Yeah, on and off. I should have watched a wee bit more, but I'd like to have been a wee bit more diligent watching it. But what I have seen's been great. So, but I did watch. What was it? The surfing.
Oh, you watched the surfing?
So good.
Oh,
nice.
I thought it was the most boring sport in the world.
No,
I guess the waves weren't big enough. If no one's dying and getting wiped out.
20 minutes for a wave to turn up, and then they either fall off or they don't. I didn't think it was a great spectator.
It sounds to me a lot like looking out of my window at people standing at the bus stop.
I think I've watched a lot of surfing because my mate's nephew is hopefully going to be on the Team GB for LA. So I'm quite au fait with surfing, and coming from coastal Welsh town, there's quite a lot of the boys growing up that used to surf. Right. I can't stand up. I've tried. I'm useless. Yeah. But yeah.
No balance.
I thought you were about trainers for a second.
But you know early on if you can balance, if you're good at balancing or not, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
What, in life?
Well, I tried skateboarding and I was pretty bad at skateboarding. I mean,
I can't see you as a skateboarder clearly. So yeah
absolutely.
Works.
Way too heavy to be a skateboarder. I'm lucky to.
I do feel the need to apologise for focusing on the one sport I didn't like when everything else has been bloody brilliant.
Yeah, so. That's true. You're very glass half empty today, Paul. Yeah, let's hope you chin up for the rest of the pod. So, Mike, what's the episode title today?
We are episode 66, and it's called A Toast to Ardnahoe.
Are we really episode 66 already?
Yeah, I had to just double check. That's what you'll hear book flicking in the background. So Lib was
65.
Yeah, Lib 65.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm still pissed off I didn't get to use my "Who Needs a Fringe Anyway" podcast title for that episode. But hey,
we'll just save it for next year.
We can keep it for the comedy festival next year.
Save it for next year.
I'm really surprised there's not a Route 66 kind of connection or something. But obviously too obvious for creative guys like you.
We usually go for the obvious route, but we just, because it's an Ardnahoe takeover today, we've conceded on the title. So, Paul, what's been in your glass and what's been up your arse in the last few days?
Ardnahoe, what's been in your glass? Ardnahoe, what's been up your ass?
So thanks to both of yourselves and one of your fantastic earlier guests, Michelle Henry, I have been on a 9-month pilgrimage to try and empty the open bottles I've got.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I think I'm down to about 10, which is probably the lowest it's ever been.
Well done.
That's amazing.
And in the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing the end of bottles like Kilkerran 16, Arm 10, a single cask from Glen Scotia, shot bottle.
Yeah.
The Loch Lomond, the number 5 one that was out recently.
The Distillery edition, is it? Or the Distillers?
Oh, you've polished that one off already. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's that was shared. They've all been shared actually with a lot of people, but it's been nice to put some of them to bed. To be perfectly honest,
does it feel cathartic to get rid of all these bottles that are just knocking about?
Yeah, I think so. And I think kind of Michael, in that discussion you had with him, that probably must have been about last September, October.
Yeah,
probably across your whole viewership and listeningship gave everyone an excuse to start drinking more of the whiskey.
It massively
well, we can't possibly take responsibility for that. But if there was loosely a connection, then okay, good for everyone.
I've pulled the sound clip off as well.
Have you?
So I'll drop that in here.
Do you believe in this thing when a bottle gets down to like a third left? You just can't leave it sitting on your shelf for a year or 2 years. You've got to get rid of it, haven't you?
Once it gets kind of a third,
like this,
a third, a quarter,
That's got to go soon now.
Yeah.
Duncan's there like going, that looks like a third. Yeah, let's get it done.
Yeah, that's a pretty healthy third.
That's just Mike holding that up there.
Yeah, they are pretty stable till about that level. Then that's kind of the tipping point. You have too much headspace and you lose too much of the flavour over time. So,
what do you think? What do you think? Like 6 months, like to get rid of it, or 3 months? I mean, finish it. You know, do you think
I would
6
finish
months?
it within a month.
But the downside of it is it means I've barely opened a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, because you panic
Or
and you go, I
about-
mustn't open up anything else. This is just. But the way I get it around in my head, Paul, is I say, well, look, if I open the bottle up and just have kind of the shoulder and then leave it, it probably won't change at all for like a year. You know, it's just when you start to get down to sort of halfway, you're like, you know.
Do you know what? I literally had that conversation with myself the other day because I'm like, I still need to open these new bottles, but I can justify it by saying it needs air. Take a couple of drams out, come back to it in a month. That's like the Unkilted. Yeah. I still hasn't been open a month yet, I don't think. It's getting better the more time it has. So after a month, I'll start posting some tasting notes and stuff about it, and I'm getting some samples of that sent out to a couple of people. But yeah, it definitely is a good excuse to keep opening, just to give them that bit of air, let them settle out of the bottle.
One of my big achievements for the year that any decent whiskey fan will feel really annoyed about, and I'm not asking for samples here, is at Christmas I put a real effort into finishing all the samples that people had given me.
Right.
And I'm now in a stage where when I get samples, I drink them pretty much right away, and I can remember who gave me them because my record keeping wasn't great. And I can send a message back to the person saying one thanks.
This is a direct request to all listeners of the Honest to a Malt pod. If everybody sends Paul one sample, look, listen, you know, you'll probably something about you being able to fish or something based on that old charity clip. You know, teach a man to make his own samples. No, if everyone sends Paul one sample, then you'll be way behind again, won't you? So let's get it done.
So people have been really kind. And I know you mentioned that Jason was a couple of podcasts ago, and he was very kind and generous, sending me something after Kendal Whisky Festival last December. So, but it takes a bit of effort to get through all your stuff. So
it does. I've got 2 champagne buckets still full, and every time I make a dent, more arrives. But
like,
your liver's just having a chat with you, going, "Come on!" It's like they'll give.
It's like coming onto a podcast series and finally finding it out in episode 66 and having to go and do the last 65 to play catch up. That's what it's a bit like trying to
I think the samples I've been sent, I've probably got about 30 or 40, nothing like Mike left.
I've got
some of them I keep for like times like Christmas. But I did just randomly have that Bunnahabhain 30-year-old from Malt Whitson, Paul Whitson. Is it Paul Whitson? I think so, Crowsability. Like on a pod the other day, just because I fancied having a really good dram. No, just a standard Monday evening. No celebrations, you know. Just get it done. And has anything been annoying you?
Anything been annoying me? No, the last time I was on in November, guys, I was on holiday. I had just seen the Northern Lights and the world was at peace. And this week I'm on holiday. I've not seen the Northern Lights.
So basically you're always on holiday. London. That's what I hear. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing here.
I had 3 days down in London with my wife last week. It was her birthday, which was 3 really good days. Very hot, but really good. And yeah, this has been a really good week, actually. So, no, I've got absolutely nothing to complain about other than
beautiful
surfing in the Olympics.
Right. Other than those surfers ruining that hour of your life. Yeah. Well, write a letter.
Annoyed from Glasgow.
All right. What about yourself, Mike? What's been in your glass and what's been up your ass annoying you?
What's been up my arse is a lack of surfing coverage of the Olympics.
There's just not enough.
It's not enough. Not enough. They're only 20-minute rounds. I'd like at least 40.
The thing about surfing coverage in the Olympics is it comes in waves, doesn't it? That's the thing.
Hey. Baboom, baboom. That was very good.
Sure
very good. Shit comedy. It wasn't. It's terrible. That's why it's good. What's been in my glass? What is in my glass is a Berrylicious bottling from SMWS. It is number 48171, which is a Balmenic 15-year-old. It is ABV of 52.7. I think it came in at like 80 quid, just around that, low 80s if that. Spectacular. I took a punt and bought 2 just because I've been on the hunt for Balmenic, and yeah, it's proved its worth. Just chock full of like meaty notes, which I think is now prevalent, I guess, with Balmenics. I picked that up in the 2 I've had, so I can't really say it's a definite note, but I've heard sort of chorizo-y, sort of meaty note, just the undertone of it on throughout there. It was barrel char, loads of berries, hence the name Berrylicious. Just a really decent dram. So it's sold out, but obviously keep an eye on the stocks because sometimes they just find loads and it reappears again. If it does pop up, I will get a notification and send it out over socials. So that's that one. What's been up my arse is my fitness. I went for a walk today and I can barely move. Now I say a walk, it was good. I left the house in no particular direction, just started walking, and after about sort of 5k found a pub, had a pint and some chips.
Eroded any gain from the walk.
No, and then did the 6k back somehow, even though I took the same route. It was longer, probably took a stupid way. I did use a public footpath for one bit, so I was like cross country 11k. I think I burnt off 158 calories or something like that.
700 calories.
2 hour walk. No, it was 800 something.
800 something. Minus the pint. Yeah. Minus the chips.
Minus the pint.
Probably.
Yeah. So 50 calories for 2 hours.
But you feel better.
Walking.
That's the point, isn't it?
I felt better. Yeah. I am now really in a lot of pain. So
wow.
I am. What's annoying me is my body and my brain are in such different places. My brain's ready to get back to like doing everything normally, but the body's still like, slow down, cowboy.
Yeah.
Easy
Take it easy.
Take it easy. You do need to take it easy for a while as well.
No, I know. So yeah, me annoying me is what's been up my arse. How about you? What has been in your glass and what's been up your
Well, I popped into SMWS today in central London for a business meeting. I always figure, if for any reason the person I'm meeting doesn't turn up, at least I can have a drink. At least I can have a drink I actually want to have. So it's like my go-to place now to have meetings in the afternoon.
Did they turn up?
They did turn up, yeah. They were actually good fun. So I had a pour of Punch Drunk Slam Dunk Coastal Funk, one of the Glen Scotias, 93.212, also from SMWS. It was good. It was. I felt like it was a little fruity usually. It was still briny. It was very, very high salinity. Not as complex as some of the other single Scotia casts that people, and I sort of agree with that. But at the same time, kind of easier to drink. I could have had a third of the bottle of that happily. Whereas sometimes, they're so wacky on the nose. You need to really you feel like you're analysing it. This one, I didn't feel like I was analysing it. It just tasted good. Yeah, decent. And other than that, just a pint of Guinness back home. I haven't had anything else since the last pod because we're sort of back to back in pods. So, I like to have a day or two off the booze during the week. Yeah. What's been up my arse? Really simple. Just going into London today. I don't usually do transport related ones, but I was coming back and I popped to a whiskey shop, might pick something up, and then after leaving the whiskey shop with the said thing I picked up, I sort of hit that time of the day, when it's really busy. But I was determined to do a bit of walking, so I walked from Covent Garden over to Holborn, and by that time it was getting to a really busy point of the day. I'm already sweating, and two things that annoyed me: one, me pouring with sweat on the tube, and another guy walking past me on the tube wearing a hoodie without a bead of sweat on him.
What is that?
I don't understand how people
I only
do
have
that.
to look at the sun and I start sweating.
So that I'm like a drowned rat, and this guy's wearing a hoodie. I want his genetics. I want to be able to be on a tube, which is probably like 35 degrees, in a hoodie.
Not in winter though. In the winter, you're going to be laughing.
yeah, I'm not though, because my
and he's going to be fucking
body
freezing.
goes both ways. I can be freezing and sweat ridiculously. It was the worst when I was younger because you'd be like wearing a coat to try to be warm, and then you'd be sweating. You'd be like, I can't win. So anyway, that, and then it was so busy on the tube. When people get on and they don't give you any personal space, and usually I'm okay with it. But a guy today was stood, and he was stood like he was giving me a sort of a bit in my lap, if you know what I mean.
I physically move people on the tube.
Yeah, I gave him a little nudge.
And I go, you're too close. There's space
he
behind
was too
you.
close.
And it just completely shocks them because people don't like anyone talking, let alone someone like moving them away.
It was quite irritating. I nudged him a bit and he moved slightly, but then he moved back and then he got off the next stop. But I felt like it was a bit much. So anyway, but other than that, all good. Plenty of walking, nice dram, pint of Guinness, happy days. And I haven't watched any of the Olympics except about 10 minutes of sprinting. So,
you should have said surfing. That would have just topped it off.
I can't rub it into falling. Paul, surfing. We've checked with a whole bunch of people, and it turns out that surfing's everyone's favourite Olympic sport. So sorry about that. Yeah, it's science. So I've got a quiz for you two. A short quiz about toast, and then we're into
keep up my 100% record.
Yes, you're 2 for 2 at the moment, aren't you? Right.
Yeah.
So can you be the first guest to beat Mike in a quiz, Paul?
And what's the connection with toast? I don't think you've made that clear. Sounds a bit random.
Whiskey toasts.
Whiskey toast.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. You're also whiskey toast, aren't you? Yes, you are. Yeah. So question 1 is...
Did Duncan forget the conversation we had and how he came up with the title? Yes.
Well, we said it was just a toast at Ardnahoe. Yeah.
Yeah, because of whiskey toast.
Of whiskey toast. Yeah, we already discussed that the other day. It's been a very long day. Okay, so when was the first toaster invented? Was it 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 80 years ago, or over 100 years ago?
Over 100 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Because Mike pulled the trigger there, I'll go 80 years ago.
Well, that's a mistake, Paul, because now you're 0 and Mike's on 1 point. But okay, I like how kind you are. If you want to win this, you're going to have to be a bit more elbow sharpened.
Well, I thought it was a bit like surfing. You had 20 minutes to wait.
Bread is the most widely consumed food in the world. True or false? Bread is the most widely consumed food in the world.
False.
False. Okay, Mike.
I would have said rice, but because I'm going to say true.
Okay, yeah, it is true. Apparently, bread is so inexpensive to make that it's the most consumed food in the world, whatever type of bread it is. So yeah, there you go.
I feel like that needs a fact check, by the way. I'm pretty convinced that most of the world is rice.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I was counting grains of rice rather than slices of bread. Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of different types of bread. They eat a lot of bread in India. You're just thinking about like Japan. Like, you need to get Japan out of your head.
Japan, China, India.
They eat bread in China. Okay. What's the next one? In the Netherlands, what is the most popular toast topping? Is it mushy peas? It's crazy Dutch. That wouldn't be too surprising. Gravy, butter and sprinkles, or jelly and cream?
Butter and sprinkles.
Jelly and cream.
Yes. So Paul's claw one back. Butter and sprinkles. Now, do you actually know what butter and sprinkles is? Butter, yes. Sprinkles.
Hundreds of thousands, I assume.
That's disgusting if they do that.
I seem to think you might get a choice. It could be like chocolate or it could be something savoury.
They turn it into a
like
dessert then, do they?
Mm.
Right. Have you tried that, Paul? You sound like you know a lot about it.
I seem to think I've seen it when I've been in Amsterdam,
Right.
but never tried it.
I've been to Amsterdam quite a few times and I've never even seen that. So I call fact check on that one, to be honest. What is the... Okay, question 4. Currently 2-1 to Mike. So all to play for. What is the world record for the fastest time to eat a slice of toast? Is it 3.57 seconds, 4.78 seconds, 6.42 seconds, or 8.47? So basically 3, 4, 6, or 8. 4, okay.
I'd have said less than 3. I was expecting a lower option to come.
Okay, to clarify, this is
the world record I can beat.
To clarify, this is a dry slice of toast with nothing on it.
I think I can beat this. Right, I'm writing this down.
Okay.
What's lowest time?
Guinness record. We'll have to have a guess first.
What is it?
It's 3.57, 4.78,
3.57,
6.42, or 8.47.
4.78.
Okay, Paul's gone 4.78. Mike?
3.57.
Okay, the correct answer is 8.47 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Mad. Yeah. It was achieved by Anthony Fauzon in Malta in 2014. So it's not even been broken for 10 years. Maybe no one's tried.
That could be the first honest to a malt.
But isn't this like...
record.
This is like the dry crackers thing, isn't it? And why isn't that in the Olympics? Paul, would you rather watch people surfing or people trying to eat toast fast?
As long as there's not a 20-minute delay, I would go for the toast fast, yeah.
Having said that, have you ever watched eating competitions where people eat like the chilies and stuff on stage?
Oh, it's horrible.
It is horrible, but it is quite entertaining TV, isn't it? Yeah. God.
It's like, remember that TV program about, I think it was based in Japan, had a Japanese name, and it was all about really torturing the contestants.
Oh, Takeshi's
Castle.
Yeah.
Going back to the hot sauce one, though.
Oh, yeah, the hot sauce comedy program.
Oh, I'm going to say Vince Vaughn, but is that right?
Vince Vaughn was on an episode, but you were thinking...
It is Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn did an episode, yeah.
He's done it this week.
Right, okay.
And it is amazing. He literally is just the coolest dude ever while he's doing it. And he's like, yeah, that's hot, but I'm chewing it. I want to taste this burn. And he's like, most people are swallowing it, trying to get rid of it. And he's like, no, I want to experience everything.
So he's a badass, basically.
Absolute badass. And that is worth a watch just for some of the quotes and stuff he comes out with. They're talking about stuff and he's like, you got to stay in the game. How does a weed grow through concrete? a little bit at a time. You just got to be there, stay in the game, stay in the game. Eventually,
It sounds to me like he's got an asbestos mouth.
He bleeds motivational conversation. He's absolutely amazing. Just a quote machine.
He was in every comedy film for a while.
Yeah.
Like he had.
Yeah, but he directed most of them.
Yeah, he had like 10 to 15 years where he was just like dominant. Along with Will Ferrell, right? Okay, last question then. Currently, hang on, have I given the answers? Yeah, so you both got that one wrong. I feel like
you didn't say closest answer.
Oh, here we go. All right, I was gonna throw a bone to Paul there. You're cheeky. Okay, last one. French toast is French. True or false?
False.
False.
Okay, so you both got a point there. So unfortunately, Paul, Mike has nicked that, hasn't he? Gone in with you.
Well, I think Mike's got home advantage. The away goals not count double.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is a toast to Ardnahoe, and there we go. That was a quiz on toast. Who knew?
Love it.
So, Paul, over to you to host us. Go on, Mike.
I was going to say, first of all, before we go to that, how has it been with the first release? Yeah. How has it been with Feis Ile? Has it just been crazy?
Yeah, so, well, listen, that's a good point to start off. That I thought what we'd do tonight is that we launched Ardnahoe, the first bottling, the inaugural release on the 10th of May this year. And then very quickly thereafter, the last Wednesday of the month, so what would that be, the 29th, I think, we had the festival day at Ardnahoe, where we launched the first ever festival bottling of Ardnahoe. So what we're going to do tonight is basically replicate what happened at Ardnahoe Distillery that day on the festival day.
Beautiful.
So, like you, I've done countless number of tastings and festivals where I've hosted them and done even more, probably taking part, to be perfectly honest. And that was one of the best days I've ever been at this year at Ardnahoe. And the reason for that is quite simple. You know, obviously been part of watching the Ardnahoe project kind of from concrete growing out the ground and finally open, having its first spirit running, and then eventually having its release. But the tasting that day at 10 o'clock in the morning, they advertised a tasting for 100 people. Mm-hmm. I think it was £80, great bargain. And it sold out in 20 minutes. Nice. And the tasting then was hosted by two of the directors, so two of the Laing family, Andrew and Scott, and Fraser Hughes, the distillery manager, and they took everyone through 6 drams. So the 6 drams, just very quickly, and then we'll break them down, is some people had been coming to Ardnahoe for the last couple of years and were allowed to try the 3-year-old cask, the 3-year-old whiskey from cask number 8, I think it was. So people got to try that from cask number 8. So that was their kind of calibrator. Here's what you've had before. Number 2 was, here's the inaugural release that some of you might have tried. It came out on the 10th of May, a couple of weeks earlier. Number 3 is, here's the Feis Ile release that is going to be available for you to buy in an hour and a half's time. But this is what made the tasting even extra special. Then what they did was they said, here is the next 3 Ardnahoes that are going to come out over the next 8 or 9 months, and none of them have been released yet.
Before they've hit their full maturation and they're taken out, as they are.
Yeah. Obviously, they had come out the cask that week, but the ones that are, if it's going to be released in 6 months' time, for example, it'll be 6 months more further mature. And it's the first time I think I've taken part in a tasting where you've done that looking back the way. You sit in the present, and then you very, very, very much look forward. Now, I've sometimes seen there's something that's coming out in a couple of weeks, but I've never seen here's something that's coming out, our next release, our next and our next. Yeah. And that made it very, very special, I think, for the people in the room, and made it very, very special for me. So we've got 4 drams tonight. So I didn't bring cask number 8. Sorry about that. I know that you have both tried the inaugural. Yep. And the inaugural was about 70,000 bottles, predominantly sherry casks, about 80-20 mix, 80% sherry, 20% bourbon or thereby. Yeah. But I thought we would try the next 4 that we had in that tasting.
It was 5-year-old.
Yeah, the inaugural had an age statement on it, 5 years old. Yep. So Ardnahoe was built, this first spirit ran in late 2018, and there was a very, very clear message from the family at that time. 1, we're not making gin. Number 2, we're not going to rush out a first release aged 3-year-old. And the message then, as many distilleries have said, is the whiskey will tell us when it's ready.
That would be an amazing T-shirt. Ardnahoe, we're not making gin.
Yeah. Well, listen,
we're not making gin.
Stuart, the patriarch of the family, Stuart's been in the business for, family's been in the business for 76 years. Stuart's about 75 himself, actually. So he's been in the business since he was a teenager. And suffice to say, well, firstly, he's a gentleman. Secondly, he's a traditionalist. And thirdly, he's obviously a very bad judge of character because he employed me. but
Did you have that tan at the time when you got the job?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
He was absolute in his view that he wanted to do this in a traditional way, and also he's in that fortunate position that some younger companies, if you like, are not in, where he had credibility in terms of running a business himself, having capital, being able to go to the bank, and I don't think the bank manager's been banging his door down over the last 4 or 5 years asking for the money back. So because the businesses get good foundations. And so we released the 5-year-old inaugural. The Feis Ile bottling was also a 5-year-old age statement. So the inaugural was bottled at 50%, and the Feis Ile bottling is at 59.3. So I thought we'd maybe try it to start with. As I said, the inaugural was predominantly sherry, some bourbon. The Feis Ile bottling is only 4 casks, right. 2 first fill bourbon, 2 refill bourbon. Like many people listening to this, I've been on that whiskey journey where I started with bourbon, moved to sherry, got to peat, and I've kind of came full circle. And actually, I think lots and lots of spirits like the Balmenic that you've got in your glass, Mike, earlier, I think it works best from a bourbon, a refill bourbon cask, and you'll judge for yourself with this one. So I hope you enjoy this, guys. 59.3, I think it was 931 bottles from, the 4 casks. I think the price point for it was £80-85 in my head, which for a very, very first Feis Ile bottling I think was a really good price. People have their own opinion on that. But cheers, a toast to Ardnahoe.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Slange.
Yeah, very much a toast to Ardnahoe. We're thrilled to have you on to talk about it. It's very exciting, and also to get to try some more of the whiskey, the future whiskey, as well as this one. It's very powerful on the nose, isn't it? We've talked about this since, but we obviously haven't talked to you directly about it. But we did try the Ardnahoe in a blind tasting, and it did well.
Yeah.
It did well in blind drams. It was dram 5.
Yeah.
Whilst I couldn't pick what it was, probably because I'd never tried it before.
It was an inaugural.
Some people were saying it was kind of Talisker-esque and whatever, but whatever you think it's like, because it's so hard when you're doing it blind. But I scored it as I would buy a bottle. If that's the baseline, it's going to be great, basically. If that's the baseline, that's the baseline. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. If that's the baseline, that's the baseline. If that's the baseline, that's the baseline.
That's the baseline.
If that's the baseline. If that's the baseline. If that's the baseline.
I've only worked for Hunter Laing for a couple of years, but I've known the family long enough that, as I said, I was at Ardnahoe when the concrete was there, and the architect was on the ground, and the place was getting built. And I've read about distilleries being built with flavour in mind, but I've never actually seen it happen.
Well, what are you starting to see as the profile, in terms of tasting notes within Ardnahoe? What are people going to be expecting?
So the first thing they were trying to build into it was a very fruit-forward flavour. So whilst it's a traditional peated Islay malt, it's the same kind of peat levels as Kalila and Ardbeg, around about 40 parts per million. They actually want the fruit to be the forward flavour and the peat to come in at the end. And for me, it's more smoked than peat. And you're right, lots of people have mentioned that they compare it to a Talisker. Some people have compared it to a Highland Park.
Yes, I could see that.
And I think that's a sign that it is, it's obviously peated to a higher level than Highland Park or Talisker, but the peat comes in at the end, and the kind of fruit forward nature of it is important. And that's largely around about the fermentation times and the distillation process and the kind of chemistry parts of it, but also the design of the distillery. So there's 2 important elements to the kind of copper contact. Ardnahoe has got the longest line arm of any distillery in Scotland, 24 feet, and it has, again, very similar to the Balmenic that you started off with, Mike. It is a distillery that uses worm tub condensers. So it's got 77 metres of copper contact to condense the vapours once it comes out the spirit still. So often what you get with worm tubs is that meatiness that you describe in the Balmenic, but sometimes worm tubs also give you a kind of fruity flavour as well, a lighter, fruitier flavour. So I think we're the only distillery in Islay that's using worm tubs at the moment. I don't think Port Ellen have used worm tubs. Maybe some of the new build distilleries.
It's nice to have another worm tub distillery on the map, isn't it? Because there's not that many of them left, really.
And a new one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a proper nod back.
Yeah, and that was absolutely built into the design. Jim McEwen was involved in this, but built in a design solely about, here is the flavour that we want to get. We want that fruit forward. We want that lightness. We want it still to people to taste it blind. And whilst they might not go immediately to Islay, they might go to Skye or Orkney, it feels like a traditional, conventional Islay single malt, but different from the other ones that are in Islay.
Yeah.
Recognisable, but different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always going to be hard, isn't it, to try and differentiate yourselves from Islay, because it's such a unique taste profile as it is for all of the distilleries. So you have to have something, and I think you have clearly separated yourself.
Yeah. What I like about this one is the length of the flavour. That 59.3% just gives it a bit more kind of weight and heft. But I think if you tasted this blind, you would probably guess it was a wee bit lighter in ABV than the 59.3 it is.
I was going to say it does smell quite sort of light, almost on the nose, as in it's powerful yet smells like it's going to be light to sip, kind of like a bit citrusy, spiced plums, maybe some seaweed in there. There's definitely some more fruit, a bit of ginger. It definitely smells different to bolder, different to a Highland Park. But there's no point even comparing it. They're all going to be different. It's just that what we're used to tasting from that area, or used to nosing from that area.
So always get that fruit forward nature, and it's for me it feels more like kind of orchard fruits, especially with this one because it's came from bourbon casks. Apples, pears, plums.
I feel like I get spiced plums type thing.
Yeah, plum. But at the end I get that. For me it's more smoke than peat. Some people say that's dancing in the head of a pin, but and then there's that bit of spice at the end, kind of cooking spice at the end. So I don't know if that's the kind of spicy plums that you're maybe picking up. But I described this to Fraser Hughes, who was a distillery manager at the time, and I said, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Fraser, but probably the worst way to describe this carefully crafted and curated whiskey that you've made over the last 5 years, but it's almost like Kalila in reverse. So if you think of a Kalila 12, it's very peaty and smoky at the front of the palate, and then you get that pineapple-y fruit at the end. I think what we've created is a spirit that's almost the other way around. You get that fruit-forward nature at the front, then you get the peaty, smoky part at the back. And surprisingly, Fraser says to me, it's not something we necessarily put in the label. Actually, it's not the worst description in the world either. No.
You should do a release and spell Kalila backwards.
Kalila backwards. Yeah. Remember I told you about the family being traditional.
It does. There's plenty of citrus in the nose.
Release number 3 is going to be Cole Isla.
So I think what we're pleased about is, to answer your question in a long roundabout way, Mike, it's been really, really well received. If people are comparing it with Highland Park or Kalila or Talisker that's older than this, that's going to be quite a compliment for us. We've not got it as distributed as worldwide as we had wanted just now, so there's been a wee bit of delay in there. So anybody listening internationally, we'll be starting to get messages from your distributor soon if you've not got them already. But we're really, really pleased with it, and we had lots of compliments, and actually maybe this one's not a great example of it because it's a wee bit stronger in ABV, but for the inaugural bottle there was lots of non-peated whiskey fans that enjoyed it. And for me, if you're trying to introduce people to peated whiskey, I would normally go to something like a Highland Park or a Talisker. So it's no surprise that actually some people that don't have a preference for peat actually warmed to Ardnahoe, which is a really, really positive thing for us.
I've got to say, if I had to sort of describe it more as something, like an actual sensory experience, it would be like sitting in an orchard whilst you're eating. Like when you go to the supermarket and you get takeaway sushi, right? And you open it up and you've got the wasabi out on the thing and you've got your fresh ginger on there, and there's that little bit of you can smell slightly ever so slightly the fish because there's the seaweed there, and that and that sort of smell that comes off the rice too. Yeah, it'd be like having one of those takeaway kind of sushi things with the fresh ginger and the wasabi out. I was sitting in an orchard. That's kind of what makes me think of.
You can tell he's been at SMWS today.
Oh, sorry, was that a bit wanky?
No. Well, listen, so the spice that you were speaking about earlier, when you mentioned the spicy plums, actually, I think it's ginger. Now that you mentioned ginger, maybe a bit of a suggestion there, but I just think. If I was to summarise it, I think what's been created at the distillery is something that's balanced. Now, for me, that's the kind of number one thing I'm looking for in just about any whiskey. There's a kind of smoothness to it. I think anyone tasting this blind would guess it was older, which is always a good thing. Again, what I love is often what's underrated, I think, is the mouthfeel in it. You know, the mouthfeel is really, really good. Coats the mouth well, stays in the mouth for a long period of time. When I first started getting the finished product, I was thinking, oh, the length of the finish in this is great. And often when I have a whiskey that's got a long finish, I can put my glass down and I'm not rushing to pick it up again. I'm slightly different with the Ardnahoe because I'm getting a long finish.
Yeah, it's a long finish.
Really enjoy
But you're still pouring another one.
There's a long finish, and like you said, it's got all the flavour of a high ABV dram, but it doesn't drink like you're drinking a high ABV. A bit like it tastes nothing like, but similar to how we might talk about some of the Loch Lomond editions or the Glen Scotia Fino, where it might be drinking at 59%, but it doesn't taste like you're drinking at 59%. You know, you're getting all the flavour, but you feel like maybe you're sipping 52, 54%, something like that, you know.
And I think with this one, Duncan, you're getting a feel for what the spirit's like. I think you can get a feel for the spirit with the inaugural.
Yeah.
But my personal view, and other people disagree, is that no, when you get your spirit out of a bourbon cask, I think you get a better idea of what the DNA of the spirit's like. And but the great thing is we've got whiskey maturing in lots of different casks. No, so over the period of the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to see different variations of what we're doing with Ardnahoe. So
definitely very fruity. Really good.
And if you had went back to 2017-18 when the distillery was getting built, that's exactly what they were talking about. They were trying to create.
Wow.
You know, so there's a real art and a real craft of people like Jim McHugh and Fraser at the distillery saying, here's what we're trying to achieve, and then actually executing that and delivering it 5 times.
But also, you know, over volume, right? Whether it's 900 and was it 13 bottles for this or 70,000 bottles for the inaugural.
Hats off to that as well. Amazing to put that many out for the first release to make sure it gets as far and wide as possible. Yeah. Obviously, you said it's not hit globally just yet, but when it comes, people will appreciate being able to get hold of a bottle easily. Like you can still go and pick it up, which is just so good because everything else is none of this exclusive silliness.
So, well, an interesting point is if you're thinking back to 2018, and I didn't realise this to last year, we didn't know what age Ardnahoe was going to be released at. But even if we did think then it was going to be 5 years old, if you fast forward to 2024, there's so many other 3, 4, 5-year-old whiskies in the market that weren't in the market then. You know, so Ardnamurchan's just celebrated 10. You've got Wolfburn about to celebrate 12. You've got Lindors. You've got Lockleigh. You know, you've got so many other Rosé, so many other really, really good young whiskies. And actually, we are now having to land and compete in that market that didn't exist when the distillery got built.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because then you've got to compete around about quality and flavour and price point and everything else. But the one thing we were really keen on was some of these whiskies have come out, and just because they've got smaller production levels than us, they've come out and it's been a really small release of maybe 3,000 bottles in the UK, 3,000 in the rest of the world, and you never see it on a shelf because whiskey retailers maybe have 4 or 5 cases and they've got a waiting list of 100 people wanting to get it, so it sits in their back office and it gets posted out and you never see it on a shelf. We're really, really happy that since the 10th of May, we're now 3 months further on. I was in the whisky shop in Glasgow yesterday and the bottles of Ardnahoe inaugural on the shelf, and I think that's a really, really good thing.
It is a good thing. It's a really good thing because you know the volume is there, so you want people to be able to drink it. It's obviously a bad thing if you only release 500 bottles, but if you're releasing 70,000, it's a good thing to see it on the shelves.
It's confidence in what you want to achieve and that you have got it nailed on. So
I think these days people when distilleries release something, you can almost not get hold of it at all, and the price points sometimes even higher than £70, £100, £150 or whatever. What's the point? The whole point is to get people to drink it and to try it, right? And that's what you've achieved with this. Obviously, it's not cheap to get a distillery to that point, right? So I feel like some people are a little critical of the £70 price point, but to be fair, very, very, very expensive to get this business up and going, right? And to be able to get the liquid as you want it and get it
and
out.
to sit on it for an extra 2 years where other people wouldn't.
But regardless of price point, what really matters is, does it taste good? And it does.
Yes.
Is it value for money? And no, everyone, it's the difference between cost and value, isn't it? So, but the good news is that our first core release, which we're now going to taste, there is hopefully going to be a similar release in terms of the volume, but it will be a lower price point.
Okay.
So
people will appreciate that too, I think,
Yeah.
Another good sign, but very positive, not just thinking that all prices must always go up.
So if you want to try the next one, so the release date for this isn't agreed. I'm hopeful, can be pretty confident with this side of Christmas and hopefully closer to now than Christmas. So we're going to go for another 50%er. So this will be the first core release. It's mostly bourbon casks. There's a small number of Oloroso casks in it, and even smaller number of Pedro Jimenez quarter casks in this as well. And as I say, you're getting it at 50%. The name has not been 100% agreed on this. I'll maybe come up with a quiz question round about this in a minute. But,
I wouldn't expect you to have come up with a name yet if you're not sure when it's.
We don't mind if you use honest or
Yeah,
not.
honest or not.
Yeah. We've got a working name, but I've been under express instructions tonight. Don't mention it. Don't mention it. So,
there's a red dot moving around his forehead at the moment.
Is it a toast to Ardnahoe, Paul? Is that what it's called? Is this why it's awkward?
Well, that's maybe why I've been told not to mention it. Maybe they've got another name.
Yeah.
On the nose, I find that obviously it's got similar, same DNA as the festival bottle that we tried there, but
Definitely some like lemon zest on there as well. Reminds me of like pancake day slightly.
It's a little
so
sweet,
the
isn't it?
question is that the source, the reason we've called the distillery Ardnahoe is it's built right next to Ardnahoe Loch, which is that largest loch in on Islay. And I was just thinking today, as I was coming on the podcast tonight, was is there another whiskey distillery in Scotland named after its water source? And I don't think there is.
Oh, that's going to end up as a question on the VPub, isn't it? I'm sure at some point. That would have been a great question for that.
So I can wait to hear or see what people reply to on your social media feed.
Yeah, okay, that's good. What we'll do is we'll ask that question on social media and follow up to it. I've had a cheeky sip of this one already. This one is far too easy to drink. Far too easy. This is dangerous.
It is a common theme of all the Ardnahoes I've tried is that they don't feel as strong as the ABV number on the bottle.
I think this is why also in my brain my brain was sort of wired between when we were trying the inaugural blind, why my brain was jumping between like Talisker and Highland Park. Because they're two brands, because that smokiness, they're two brands that I sort of associate a kind of an ABV of sort of 50-ish% of just being dangerously drinkable. Yeah. Obviously, with Talisker, they've put all the colouring in it and everything else. I assume this is fully non-chill filtered, no colouring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, the 50%, so the Hunter Laing, one of its brands is Old Malt Cask, which was released in 1998, I think. So 1998, they released that with every bottling at 50%. Which, if you think back to 1998, nobody was drinking whiskey at 50%. No, you had 40, 43 bottles. I think Springbank were doing 46 then. So 50%, I think when they write the history of whiskey, Old Malt Cask should get a chapter of itself because it was the first brand to come out, not at cask strength and not at low bottle strength. And maybe it was a wee bit unfashionable then, but you fast forward to now and it's a really, really fashionable ABV. You know, people like that 48, 50%.
Yep.
So when they were coming up for the levels for Ardnahoe, 50% was in people's minds, certainly above 46. You know, we wanted to make sure it was non-chill filtered and definitely no colouring added. So far, it's worked at 50%. So we've stuck to that 50% at the moment. No sign of any change in it. I think you still got orchard fruits in this one, but I think there's more kind of green apples in this one.
Yeah, there's something else going on the nose as well that I'm trying to put my finger on.
You're not going to get cabbage again, are you?
No.
Yeah, white chocolate and cabbage.
That was an Ardnamerkin, wasn't it?
Dark chocolate and kale.
No.
What do you have for dinner?
Like, there's ever such a hint of like it's not germaline, but it's towards that, and it's very mild on the nose.
I think this is a compliment. It reminds me of some really banging indie Lafroigs, where you've got like Douglas Laing do some amazing releases of like 18-year-old Lafroigs. And it's kind of that. They're not as TCP as the normal stuff, but it's still got your citrus, it's got your orchard fruit, but there's enough hint of hospital, as I would call it. And that
hint of hospital is a good shout. Yeah.
You often get that tasting note of Band-Aids or Elastoplast with Lafroig. No, I don't know if that's maybe something you're picking up. You mentioned the germaline.
I'm going to say also, you know when you open up a tin of kidney beans, right? That's not bad. That's not a bad thing. All the fruits there that you said, all the smoke, a bit of hint of hospital. But when you open up a tin of kidney beans, I sort of get a bit of that.
Just bear in mind, we've got to try and sell 70,000 bottles of this.
I mean, it's good. It's delicious.
People don't like kidney beans.
It smells like fresh bed sheets. And
you've been hanging out with Sav too much. All your tasting notes have gone vegan.
It does a bit. Like, okay, let me put it a different way. Not, you know, when you got a nice bean salad or something like that. You know, think about an expensive bean salad that you get at a posh cafe. I mean, the thing is everything you said is there, but we sometimes are looking for those other notes, you know. And there's something that's just kind of playing around with me.
Don't put fucking we on this, mate. You're on your own here, bean boy.
Paul, what should we be getting on the nose?
If Mike's comparing this to an 18-year-old Indy Lafroig, we'll take that any day of the week. No, but, well, again, you should be getting the fruit-forward nature and the peat smoke at the back. The tasting notes, I'm not sure have been written for this, actually. So,
well, we have now kidney beans.
Yeah.
I knew you were panicking at the start. I could tell when we came in this podcast you were panicking at the start. I could see it on your face. The moment you mentioned surfing.
I don't think the tasting notes will be written until we actually get that final version of it.
I find that the palate is much closer. The nose is different to the Feis Ile one, but the palate's much closer. You know, that kind of that fruitiness, the creaminess. This one's almost even creamier. Citrusness, you know, the orchard fruit, the smoke, ever such a hint of peat because it's heavy on smoke, like you said. I think the palate is really good.
It's a good amount of like barrel char in there as well.
Yeah, and you're definitely getting that maritime boat, PX quarter casks, Oloroso sherry casks in there, but predominantly bourbon. So it's almost a kind of, I don't want to say it's a reversal for the inaugural, but remember the inaugural was mostly sherry, some bourbon. Yeah. This is kind of the other way around.
It's good.
Non-age statement. This will be the first core release. We'll give it a name and we'll bring it out each year. So this year, it's going to be predominantly 5-year-old casks, but there might be some younger casks in there. Fast forward to next year, we would expect it would predominantly 6-year-old casks and some slightly younger, and it'll just go on and on and on and on. Yeah. The ambition just now is to have it as a non-age statement.
That's good. I suppose it gives you the option at some point to go, right, we are now at this. This has worked. We've kind of narrowed that recipe down somewhat. Here's your Ardnahoe 10 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good way forward when you look at the distilleries like that I mentioned earlier on, or whether it be Rosé or Lindors, Lockleigh, Ardnamurchan, they're doing the exact same thing because it's that old story. It's the Billy Walker line. No, we're not looking for consistency just now. You're looking for things continually improving and getting to their best. So what the future holds, we don't know, but the short and medium term definitely is keep it at non-age statement, increasing the age of it, the predominant age in the mix, but bring it out as a core release with the same name every year. So you will see it once a year.
Really good, Paul.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our next core release, which is kind of quite exciting. See when it comes out. What do you think of the bottle, guys? Because there's a lot of comments about the bottle design when it came out.
For me, it's unique enough, but still classic enough. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You almost stole exactly what I said when I saw it. It's got that kind of classic traditional style to it, but it feels quite contemporary as well at the same time. Quite modern. So the feedback on it's been really good.
Whatever graphic designer you used has hit the brief there quite well.
Well, the logo on it, if you go to the distillery, that's the logo you see at the distillery. So we've always had that logo. So the logo is basically the Paps of Jura. Well, the pagoda of the distillery, the Paps of Jura in the background.
Yeah.
See at the bottom and the clouds in the sky at the top. Yeah. So that's been the logo for some time.
It's really well balanced, that dram.
It's good.
That's excellent. Yeah. So I will wait to see, 1, what it's called, and 2, what the price point's going to be. But that's right in the hitting the non-chill filtered, no colouring, super Moorish. Yeah, a nose that's interesting enough to keep you guessing a little bit whilst you're sitting in front of the TV watching something or listening to the radio, and a palate where you just want to have another sip. Basically, long finish, just goes on and on and on in your mouth.
Well done to the team.
Good job.
So the one after that we're going to release will be the first core cask strength release that we're going to release. So obviously the festival bottling was cask strength at 59.3, but only 4 casks. This again will be a similar, hopefully a similar volume to the inaugural. Again, a lower price.
Oh, I love the nose on that Paul. Right. Immediately, I'm excited.
Holy shit.
Some days you're in a burbs mood, some days you're in a sherry mood. I think it's because I had a couple of drinks earlier. I think I'm into sherry cask territory now, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. So half of this is Oloroso. The majority of the other half is bourbon, and there's a small amount again of Pedro Jimenez quarter casks. And the samples that you've been given actually have the ABV on it. Mine's doesn't. So remind me what the ABV is.
59.
So
59.
So obviously it might change by the time we get it into we get it vatted and get it bottled, but you've got it at 59% today. So
this is, you said this is 50% Oloroso, then a smattering
and it's mostly
of
bourbon,
Pedro
and then
Jimenez.
there's a small amount of Pedro Jimenez quarters. So the last time I had this was on.
Got a
You are
smile on
smiling,
your
aren't
face.
you?
You went,
Last time I had this, it
oh.
was,
It's like she's like he's just got into a hot bath.
it was the
Oh.
29th of May at the festival, so I've not had it since. And I just, you know how you can have a whiskey and it takes you straight back to where you were and who you were with?
Yeah. And you said that was one of the best days you've had.
Yeah, so this is taking me right back to that.
You're a part of history now, then this is going to go down to sort of folklore stuff. I mean, there's not that many distilleries on Islay.
Oh, well, listen, it's just been such a. I mean, I was lucky enough to see the distillery getting built over time. I was there at the opening day. I've been at every festival day that they've had. So, I mean, a great story is, you'll love this. So the first couple of festival days they had at Ardnahoe, I went over and paid my way. So I paid my flights. I paid for they used to do the kinship tasting then, which was 6 drams. Kind of youngest whiskey most years was 26, 27, 28 years old. So I'd pay my ticket for that. Sometimes that was about £140 a ticket for the tasting.
Not to mention the money you spent on sunbeds before you travelled over there.
And pay my accommodation. And fast forward a couple of years, and Stuart Laing phoned me up and said, Paul, next year's kinship tasting, would you like to come over to the distillery and do it for us?
Oh, that's lovely.
So, no, take the financial part away from it, but all of a sudden I didn't have to book my flight and I didn't have to book accommodation, didn't have to pay for my ticket. But take that aside, I mean, anyone listening to this at a whiskey fan, if a guy that owns a whiskey distillery says, Paul, will you come over and do our kind of milestone tasting at the distillery for the festival? It's just, and I didn't do it on my own. There was 4 of us that shared it all between us over 4 different sessions, but I did that for the last 2 years, I think, and absolute honour and privilege. But just the story about it for me is just like, you go from being a whiskey fan and the fanboy, you're standing up in front of people, and people from all over the world are listening to you about these 6 kinship whiskies that cost a fortune and people are wanting to try. So it's been great then, fast forward, and actually there've been some Ardnahoe spirit to talk about as well, and not just talk about, but get it to your lips as well. Yeah, I think this might have been my favourite in the day, as much as I'm at risk of contradicting myself, that I think the Spirit shine with bourbon.
Often it's worth saying that often, some of the best whiskies from that part of the world are often about 50% burbs, 50% sherry. Or some in that region of that kind of mix. It just works really well.
Yeah. I think we've got a versatility in the sense that we've got a core DNA, but it's the whiskey's got a versatility that it works in different cask types and different mixes of cask type.
Oh, that's fizzy on the palate, isn't it? It's very effervescent.
We mentioned earlier Ardnamurchan, so I mean, you know how popular Ardnamurchan is just now. So when Ardnamurchan started,
despite the cabbage, the cabbage and white chocolate.
When Ardnamurchan started, the distillery manager was a young wise man called Fraser Hughes, and just before, I think must have been just before Ardnamurchan released their first spirit, Ardnahoe tempted him to leave Ardnamurchan. There's a lot of ards in that sentence there, but Ardnahoe tempted him to leave Ardnamurchan and come back.
Yeah, double ard.
You'll have to come up with a name for all the Ardnahoe fans around the world.
Well, actually, that could be a good tasting. You could put Ardnamurchan, Ardmore, Ardnahoe, all ards together and have an art club.
Yeah, who's the hardest?
That would be a good tasting, wouldn't it?
Good whiskies, actually.
Yeah,
all of them.
it would be.
But no, we tempted Fraser away from Ardnamurchan. So all the time that Ardnahoe has been maturing in cask, and people have been raving about how good this new distillery Ardnamurchan is, I've been thinking to myself, I know the guy that started that in terms of distillery manager. There was obviously a lot of people involved in it in terms of the funding and the setup and everything else. It's been great to know that Fraser's history in whiskey, he's worked at several distilleries, for several different companies. He had his fingerprints on a brand new distillery as recently as 10 years ago. Then we managed to get his fingerprints on the Ardnahoe, and he's been a really, really good curator of that. It's common knowledge now. He's now just recently left Ardnahoe. His number 2, David Livingston, has stepped up and a really, really safe pair of hands, and will curate Ardnahoe very, very well for the years to come.
On that, is there anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to in the team? I mean, I feel like this is a really great insight into the sort of journey and the distillery. But,
Yeah, I mean, the team at the distillery have been fantastic, in terms of the distilling team effectively, and those that, the ambassador work that goes on through tours and guides at the distillery. I mean, it's just been fantastic. And over difficult times as well, when you think about it, over COVID and all the fame we've had. I'd give a shout out to the bottling team. Hunter Laing have been going for the company's only been known by that name for 11 years, but as I said, the family have been in the business for 76. They've been independent bottlers for decades, and the change of going from an independent bottler where you're bottling your own whiskey and there's maybe 300 or 400 bottles at a time to moving to 70,000 at a time.
Yeah, bit of a jump.
It is a big change, and the bottling team actually can often get forgotten, but actually what they've done in recent weeks and months is nothing short of remarkable, and what they've been asked to do in the coming weeks and months is a big step up for them as well, and that's been a massive change and transition. Just the project management of that.
Getting all the bottles is a big deal as well, isn't it?
They were probably just like, whew, we did it. We lasted. It's like, right, carry on. Next one.
Yeah. Thanks very much for doing these 70,000 inaugural bottles, but here's another 70,000 coming down the pipe.
It's such big numbers, isn't it? So, yeah, wow.
Albeit it's tiny compared to, when you think the Macallans and Glenlivets and Glenfiddichs of the world, but it is a good critical mass for us.
It feels like big numbers early on. That's the main thing.
Yeah, my neighbours just text me and said, "I've got a parcel here for you."
That's probably
my sample. My samples have gone to number.
Tell him to chuck them over the fence. You can nip out and get them.
Well, what we should maybe tell folk that are listening is that the Feis Ile bottle sample hadn't arrived with Mike earlier, so that's why Mike was so quiet when we were having it, and Duncan wasn't.
He was just so thoughtful.
I'm going, just looking at you two drink it, going, oh.
But it's there now.
Yeah.
So, what do you get then on this one on the nose? This what is going to be the first cask strength edition?
Yes. So again, then we've got a name for this, and a working name for this. Again,
is it a secret again? Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I think there's a wee bit more grassy note in this one. Still get that orchard fruit. I think it's more green apples again, similar to the last one. It feels stronger in the nose than the last one, which it is because it's up to 59%, but I still think, even in a Glencairn glass I'm drinking this out of, which keeps the kind of spirit and the vapour in it, it still doesn't feel as strong as 59%, which...
No.
Back to your point, Duncan, these might be dangerous whiskies, but I'm sure we all kind of respect them and enjoy it.
I've just put a tiny splash of water in this because I've poured the whole dram, and I've only had a couple of small sips, and I think it's working very well with water here.
I went in from the cask strength. I had Pink Lady apples, toffee crisp, raisins, dime bar, black
on the
nose, rose water. So that's probably that sort of flowery, bushy sort of element there.
I can see toffee crisp and the rose water.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, toffee crisp is a really good shout actually. Behind the fruit and the smoke, I think it's with smokier drams. It takes me longer to work out what's going on on the nose.
I can't even tell if I've smoked anymore. I'm like, gone peat blind.
I'm definitely not peat blind. I mean, I always pick up. I love it, but I pick up on it. So for me, it's the other way around. You're getting all the other stuff first. I get all the smoke and peat first, and everything else comes through for me afterwards. It's like I'm parting it, from my vision.
The palate, as we're talking about smoke again, it's really treading that line well with peat smoke. But I'm getting tons of, and I've said it previously in other stuff, like barrel char, but if something's like an alligator cask where it's really been sort of burnt nicely and it's getting that proper toasted note. So yeah. There's
definitely a caramel note, sort of toffee crisp in there, like the apples.
I'm getting a bit of that red licorice that you used to get.
Yeah.
But with a bit more spice on it.
I think this one's more apple skins as well, really. Like it's a bit more the sort of roughage of the apple, like the outside. And we say hint of hospital for the first one. This is even less of a hint of hospital.
Yeah,
but it's still
not getting
there.
Any of that TCP.
It's got dialed right back.
The only thing that's creeping is, I was going to say, a hint of Turkish Delight, which is that rose water thing, but that's that chocolate element as well. Good Turkish Delight, not necessarily the fried stuff. But
and the tasting notes for this might not be released this year.
Okay,
Good chance it'll be next year. But
wow, what a preview!
Yeah,
the tasting notes for this might not be written for well, you could be on episode 85 or something by the time the tasting notes are
Can I
written
just
for
say it's
this one.
disappointing there's no kidney beans, freshly opened can of kidney beans in this one. I'm not getting any of that.
He's chalked that off his board now. He's like, that was the
Yeah.
character profile, kidney beans. Gone.
It's just as soon as you said tin kidney beans, it just felt so
Cheap.
small
Cheap
down
and
market.
dirty, I know. Then he
But
tried to
sometimes-
recover it with, when you get a really expensive bean salad. No, Duncan, I don't.
No, you don't. You never eat a bean salad.
I've never had an expensive bean
Because
salad.
you're a barbecue guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit of barbecue note in this just when you mention it, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah. You're the expert in that, Mike.
So if I was going to do barbecue notes, and it does, now you've said it, it reminds me of like a Carolina sauce that you would put with pork or ribs. So tomato sauce, apple cider vinegar, a bit of sugar, and a bit of honey. Like that's kind of all going through there.
I think there's
add this to barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Mega, absolutely mega. You like that would make
that's quite a good shout. On top of the taste, you're getting that bit of sweetness through vinegar and like the sugar that would go into it. It's there, the sweetness, slightly meaty note. The ever such a hint of hospital. The orchard fruits. You talked about caramel or toffee crisp. It's good, excellent, very good.
This could be when this comes out your post barbecue fireside dram.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I often find that a really, really sherried whiskey, sometimes I'll say to people, instead of having a glass of red wine with a steak, you could have a really, really good proper, maybe not necessarily a big sherry bomb, but a really sherried sweet whiskey, maybe cast strength, long flame. I actually think this would go with a steak.
Yeah.
No, I know it's unconventional. You would normally go for a glass of red wine, would be the tradition.
Not in my house.
We buck the trend. We're big fans of having whiskey with food. We're not saying it's better than wine or better than beer or whatever, but we do it all the time. Yeah. It's actually quite fun trying to pair a whiskey with food.
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But again, hopefully you're finding this balanced as well. No, again, for me, it's a number one word that we're hoping to achieve. If a whiskey's not balanced, it probably just feels just not right. And trying to achieve something balanced, I think, is always difficult. Whether it's food or whether it's a spirit or a beer or an ale or anything else. Trying to do it with a whiskey that's peated, that's relatively young, trying to get it at a strength that's popular in the market, and then with the kind of different cask types, even though it's a single malt, you have to pay a wee bit of respect to the blenders involved in this, because there is a lot of blending involved in that when you're trying to blend it. All they cast together to make about 7,000 bottles. So again, the chemistry part has been done at the distillery, but actually the art part, I think, is done in the blending and the bottle.
It's worth saying that the finish is, again, very long. Obviously, you can tell the similarity. We've had that when you're doing like
super long
tastings. You can tell the similarity when you're doing back-to-back drams, but the palate is pretty consistent in terms of like, the fruitiness and the smoke. This one's got a bit more like chocolate and some toffee and stuff going on in it as well, and the other things that we said. Really balanced, super easy to drink. I still think for me, the nose is interesting enough to keep you guessing, but the palate is just tasty enough just to quaff it down. So, that's usually the whiskey that I go for the most. Whiskey which is interesting on the nose but smells nice and super easy to drink, but is do you know what I mean? Like I don't mean I don't mean like it's water, but like something which I once have had a couple of drams and I've analysed it, then I can just pour it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean you're coming to the same conclusions as I have, just with a completely different description. I think it's got that it's got layers, it's got complexity, it's got depth, it's got character. But I also think it's easy to drink, despite the fact that it's got that long wing. So that feels a real contradiction, because any time I have a wine or a whiskey that's got a long finish, I put my glass down and it lasts me for ages. I'm embarrassed to say the Ardnahoe isn't lasting as long as perhaps should. Maybe it's a bit of a novelty and I've got that bias and real enthusiasm for it. But it's interesting that you're coming up with a similar conclusion using different words.
I was going to say, so just going back to the points you boys previously made about the food pairings and stuff, I had to give a shout out to the Tipsy Midgie, because they are starting to come up now with whiskey and food menus. And they also did the tasty treats, which was whiskey with
chocolate bars, wasn't
desserts or chocolate bars. And they had the Ardnahoe inaugural paired with a Mars bar.
They were saying that it was the best chocolate and whiskey pairing, weren't they? I think.
Like I absolutely loved this post. I was like, I want to try all of these myself. So Springbank 10 went with a Kit Kat Chunky, Mortlach 12 with Snickers, Toffee Crisp with Ardbeg fermentation, Tunnock's Tea Cake with Glenmorangie Tail of the Forest, just loads of stuff. But Mars Bar with Ardnahoe.
So, Mike, let's ask people what we want you to do if you're listening to this and you really like having, a dram with your favourite chocolate bar. Share what it is and tag the Tipsy Midgie in.
Tipsy Midgie.
Tag the Tipsy Midgie in.
And
give them some love.
Whiskey Forager, Colin, who's running the place.
So I've not met Colin, who runs Tipsy Midgie. I think he owns it.
Yeah.
Colin's a chef at a number of Michelin star restaurants in his past.
Yeah.
Right.
So he knows what he's talking about.
He knows his Mars bars from his Kit Kats.
He's in the schedule. He's coming on. I think he's our first September.
Oh, well, listen, you better make that a long
September.
episode because he's got a life story. But
yeah,
what I should have said is that the time this podcast comes out, these three. So this weekend. So probably by the time the podcast comes out, it will be in the past. But this weekend is the Whisky Fringe in Edinburgh, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 9th, 10th, 11th of August. I think Colin's going to be there, so he said he's going to pop over and say hello, and he's invited me down to the Tipsy Midge, saying there's a dram waiting for me.
Oh, there you go.
He is a lovely bloke.
Yeah. Ask him about his biggest poker win.
Right, okay. Yeah, noted. Biggest poker win.
Right, biggest poker win. That's a story. But the Whisky Fringe has got this thing called the Halftime Orange. So it's a 4-hour festival. Starts at 2, finishes at 6. At 4 o'clock, a whistle sounds. And every stall or every exhibitor has their Halftime Orange, which is a special dram. On the Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend, in the past, if you're listening to the podcast, the 3 drams that we're having tonight are going to be the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the first core release will be the Friday.
Yep.
The cask strength release that we've just had there, 59%, is going to be the Saturday. And the one we're going on to is the Sunday. So basically, we're replicating what we did at the festival on the 29th of May. You guys here, Mike and Duncan, are the next people to try it. And then we're going to let the people at the Whisky Fringe in Edinburgh next weekend.
Very cool.
But you only get one halftime orange. So you have to decide, do I go for the halftime orange with Ardnahoe and Hunter Laing, or do I go with my halftime orange with Band X, Y, or Z? So you get one shot, you get one ticket as part of your
You've only got one shot. What was that film? What film was that from?
One shot, one opportunity. Eminem.
That's Eminem.
8 Mile.
Down. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was played in the Olympic Stadium.
Oh, was it?
One shot.
Not
During
over
the surfing.
Yeah, just to fill the time between.
No.
You only get one shot to sit here for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So you want to try the final one?
Absolutely, Paul.
This Ardnahoe, when we were getting towards the inaugural release, we asked people to sign up for the Ardnahoe Society. Don't know how many members we've got of it now. We're well into the thousands. I've not had an update for about 6 weeks, and it was 5,000 then, so it could be a lot more.
And can people still join?
You can still join, and that gives you access to special deals, and we are going to release society bottles. So this will be the first society bottle. As I said, might be in 2025.
I got to say, I'm far more tempted to sign up now, having tried a bunch of it, knowing that it's very good. Is that bad of me?
No, absolutely not.
I think I am signed up anyway. I would have signed up.
So the first society bottle, I would guess at this time, will come out in 2025. Don't think it'll be before Christmas, but it's going to be very, very similar to this. So what you've got in your glass there is it's all quarter casks. So the vast majority of them are Oloroso. And so rough figures here, and this might change. The recipe might move about as the whiskey changes over time.
Approximately.
But we're about 3/4 Oloroso quarter casks, and a quarter Pedro Jimenez quarter casks.
Ooh, naughty.
So if you go back to the Feis Ile bottle, which was 4 bourbon casks, two first fill, 2 refill bourbon, this is kind of the opposite end of the extreme, I suppose, if you like. And
this smells very rich.
Sherry, but we're doing sherry quarter casks. So I'm really looking forward to what you think of this. And I always say the story, people say about, again, this is almost all 5 years old. If we bring this out every year, it will move on a year each time. And
Duncan
statement
significantly takes the piss out of me for using the word coconut during my tasting because
Coconut.
I always find it. That is a Bounty Bar on the nose. That is just beautiful. Like, it's Bounty Bar dipped in like strawberry jam.
Strawberries for sure. Yeah.
This is outstanding.
I'm really interested. I'm going to keep sniffing it. I'm really interested to see if any of the DNA is still in the palate because it's so different on the nose. Out of all of them, this is the one that's screaming to me after dinner the most.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the others I'd have with the food, before the meal, when the guest comes around. This is the one at the end of the meal. You're sitting down and you're relaxing. The plates are been cleared or there's still something on the table and you're going to pour something a bit decadent just to sit down, maybe in between before dessert or after, or you've gone out on the terrace. This is that dram, right?
Yeah. We've almost had them in the order that you would have a meal. The fish at the bottling you would have is before your meal. The next one you could have with a starter. The middle one you could have definitely had with a steak if you had a main course or meat. And this one, I'm not a cigar smoker, but actually I think you could have this with a dessert or you could have it with a cigar as well. No, it's definitely
it'd be great with it.
End of the night.
A nice cup of black coffee, this and a cigar would be perfect.
Yeah. I always say about whiskey that, let's say this is all 5-year-old, right? So you can't make it any older than what it is. It's a bit like your children, though. When your children get to be a teenager, they're 14 years old, you can't make them any older than what they are. Yeah. But you can give them more maturity by looking after them and giving them good advice and giving them good bottles and looking after them.
You can scare them as well sometimes just to make sure.
Or you can bully them and
it's just a little bit of fear, that's all.
Yeah. But I think the same with whiskey is that actually you can make whiskey more mature than its actual age. Now, some good tricks for doing that is I think if it's a peated whiskey, that often helps.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if it comes from different casks, whether it be red wine or Tokay or sherry or port, I think if you put it in quarter or octave casks, that increases the maturity. And what you've got here, I think, is a combination of all these things. So you've got basically a 5-year-old spirit, but you've got sherry, you've got quarter casks, you've got peat, and then you've got it at a slightly higher ABV, that 50% higher than the normal kind of bottling strengths. Yeah. And I just think it's got lots and lots going for it.
So much kind of strawberry jam, and I get a bit of what Mike's saying about the sort of coconut, a sort of hint of that kind of chocolate and coconut Bounty Bar. But also, I think you mentioned earlier kind of like red licorice or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there's something a bit like that on the nose
red
too.
Strawberry laces.
Could be red strawberry laces. There's something going on in that kind of sweet region. But overall,
there's definitely a link back to the character. So if you go back to the first core release, you've still got the taste and the smell of that. The fresh sort of fruit is toned down a touch, and this is just those darker fruits are just intensified. It does taste older, like significantly older, I would say. It tastes higher, or drinks higher than 50%.
Can I say as well? I think
so rich.
All of the drams have ever such a slight, faint citrus note alongside the smoke, right? Yeah. So faint, and this is right there in the background behind all that stuff we're talking about alongside the smoke. You can tell once you get past the sherry notes that's the same whiskey.
Yeah.
But it's just hidden.
I can't wait to put this into blind tastings because I think no one's guessing this is a 5-year-old whiskey, in my opinion.
No, definitely not. Not a chance. I haven't sipped it yet, but on the nose, not a chance.
Wait for the palate.
I don't think actually any of them so far have really tasted like just 5-year-old whiskey, including the inaugural. We've talked about this before, but we're happy to talk about it again, just briefly. You know, having done blind drams, 28 people, 44-ish blind drams now, 5 drams ago, 80-ish pounds a bottle, and the second highest scoring of all time now was 5 times 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With the cask management, with the spirit these days, with all of the knowledge that's out there, and also the fact that people are often trying, nosing and tasting stuff in a shorter range, like we are now, sort of 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes of whiskey rather than an hour or an hour and a half of whiskey. The whiskies that are balanced, whiskies that have interesting notes on the nose, whiskies that are bold in profile, you know, that tick all the right boxes, do so well, right? The more subtle whiskies that you might need to sit with for an hour and a half lend themselves less well to a shorter tasting format. But regardless of that, it smells amazing.
Taste it, man. I want to see your face when you dive in, because this is...
Oh, is this Duncan having his first taste?
Mm.
Well, while he's sipping that, I don't want to compare it to our distillery, but I can imagine having a whiskey from a well-known sherry distilleries I know there's a bit of peat in this, but no, maybe that's 10 years older than this, and I think it would compare really, really favourably. And that's just an opinion, and I know I'm biased, but
oh, Paul, I want this.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'll phone the office tomorrow and say
Outstanding job.
if you get a society request from Duncan,
Decline it.
Lock it.
I've got
Lock it.
to say double the price, but it's free, so double free is still free. Duncan, you're free.
That's incredible. I've enjoyed all of them, but I mean that's really incredible, that one. I think it's hard to say. I mean the Feis Ile one's amazing as well. So it's hard to say. They're all,
do you know what
different.
I mean? Where it tastes like it's more than 50, but it's not because it's burning. It's because there's just so much flavour there, which I normally associate with a higher ABV.
The flavours are just so well blended together on the palate, and the palate goes so well through to the finish. And it's confusing my brain. You know, when it's like when the flavours have kind of melded together and they've made their own flavour, right? So I'm like, is there tobacco in there? No, there's smoke. It's
like a really good plate of food. No, you get a balance, but you get a different flavour with every forkful that you take. No, for me, this is a real journey. This one, I know journey is a real cliche in whiskey terms, but it's one of the whiskies that when you only give 10 ml out samples out of this in a festival, this is going to be really difficult because you want the people to have 4 or 5 sips and pick 4 or 5 different flavours every time they take a wee sip. And this is, I think you get that with all of these whiskies, to be perfectly honest. And if you add water to it, it kind of changes as well. But for me, you've got, I keep mentioning the word balance, which is important, but for me, you've got that layering, you've got that depth, you've got that character that changes. And I'm really, really proud and privileged to be having watched this happen over the last number of years and no involvement in it whatsoever. But it's really exciting to think, what's this going to be like when it's 8 and it's 10 and it's 12?
Yeah.
Paul, you're going to hate me for this. I love it. I love this whiskey, but you're going to hate me. But I also, now I've had a sip, I get a wee bit of like imperial leather soap on the nose as well. Like once I've had the sip, once I've gone through the strawberries and everything else, I go back to it. But I think overall it's just so confusing, right?
That takes me back to my childhood. I've not seen imperial leather soap for, I didn't think you were old enough.
What happens with me is once I've picked something out, I focus on it for a bit, and then I have to sort of forget about it, and then I tune into something else.
You should find out what's in imperial leather, because no other soap smells like that.
It's not soap; it's whatever imperial leather soap smells.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you find out what
I'm googling it now, Mike. I'm googling it right.
Imperial leather. You'll have a picture of my nan.
A few moments later, Mike's nan.
And how would cabbage, white chocolate, and imperial leather go together?
Oh, goodness me. I'm never going to live that cabbage. And it's not my fault if that's what it smells of. So the unique fragrance includes notes of woodsy patchouli and precious frankincense.
Frankincense, that would be the one.
Woodsy, it's spelled patch. Literally, it's spelled Patchouli. Patchouli. So woodsy patchouli and precious frankincense with the power to evoke nostalgic memories. You might need to take an extra moment to truly enjoy this luxurious experience.
I guarantee you it's the frankincense.
This is truly an indulgent bar of soap experience. So, yeah.
Can you still buy it?
I don't know.
I'm going to get some now.
Anyway, it'll be the frankincense. There you go, Paul.
I'm getting like, the orange concentrate, like the sort of the cheap cartons you get from supermarkets, like not the super fresh Tropicana, like the stuff I grew up on, the proper like concentrated orange juice is now on there as well. So it's moving through. I love this.
Ever such a hint. There's the tiniest hint in the background of like garam masala or something. It's so tiny. It's like hidden away behind all the fruit and everything else. Really great nose. This would be
patchouli.
Perfect.
I'm getting patchouli.
This would be perfect to sit with a cigar or with friends
in the bar. Really,
and just when you're out and just really, sit down, have a chat. You're chatting about nonsense and try to figure out what's actually going on in the nose that you think.
For me, Islay whiskies, people often think are a winter drink. Absolutely. I think, the range that we've had there tonight, there's a place for them. No, we're talking about having them at a barbecue. We're talking about, you absolutely would be good in the darker winter with the fire on or the central heating on or whatever else. But they go with food. I just think they've got a real versatility. I'm a big fan of Ardnahoe Distillery. I like the spirit that they do. I like the fact that it works in Amarone cask. I like the fact that it works in Sauterne cask. I like the fact that it works in rum and it's great peated and unpeated.
Yeah.
Even before the opened lag. Hopefully Ardnahoe is going to be a distillery like that as well. And that whilst we're predominantly a peated whiskey distillery, it'll work in different casks. We've got some stuff in cognac casks, casks and a variety of other things. But tonight what you've tried is a combination of kind of really bourbon, sherry, different size casks, obviously quarter casks and normal size. But hopefully what you've picked up is the DNA characteristic, but obviously the fact that the blenders have put things together really, really well in larger volumes. So a wee, if you can indulge me, a wee toast to the folk at the distillery, the blending team, the bottling team, and the team at Park Circus, which is our head office, who do all the admin.
Cheers to you, and cheers to everybody involved in making this great whiskey. And thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
If you're listening, sign up for Society membership. If for nothing else, you should anyway, but for this third dram.
Yeah.
Because this is mega.
Yeah.
Mike is, while we've been on, Mike has created 20 different email addresses.
Yeah.
From 20 different societies.
So I think that obviously I couldn't get hold of the Feis bottle because I wasn't there. Fair enough. Not my fault. But I've tried it now, so thank you.
This is what I had left. This was my personal bottle.
That's your personal bottle.
Oh my! You need to finish that tonight.
100% sending you stuff.
Michel Henry would be fuming. Think of the oxygen getting to that now.
I think I'd have all of these. I think I'd have all three. They're all so all four. They're all so different.
Guys, if you look over my shoulder, I've got another 2 bottles there. Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
You're right.
Well, the world's tiniest violin's coming out for you. I'll play it as I surf the waves. Brilliant. Just so happy to try them and have you talk us a bit through, what's happened over the years and everyone involved in it. And we hope that people, if they haven't tried Ardnahoe, are going to get involved and try a bottle. Yeah. And we'll delve a bit more into what's happening there because it's obviously very exciting and there's a lot of hard work that's gone into making some great whiskey, right? Yeah.
And from our point of view, you and I have met at Hunter Laing or at whiskey festivals where I've been representing Hunter Laing.
Yeah.
I think this weekend the Whiskey Fringe will be the first time we've actually got Ardnahoe on the table as well as other Hunter Laing products now, and obviously that'll increase over time. So we're just going through that transition of how we present ourselves at festivals. There'll be some festivals this year where we take 2 stands, one Ardnahoe, one Hunter Laing, but for the majority of them it'll be a one stall, one table with a combination of both. So people that have not had the chance to try the inaugural, for example, that will be on the table this weekend, and as I say, the halftime orange on different days will have a different thing. But as the year goes on and into next year, there'll be a range for people to taste. So it's really great to get that old kind of cliche, but it's a great cliche, liquid to lips, and
liquid on it. Bums on seats, liquid on lips, right?
And again, we said it's so refreshing, good, and exciting to be tasting stuff that's potentially we're not going to see it for a year on the shelves.
I was going to name a distillery because you very rarely get to do this type of stuff, and I can think of at least maybe one distillery where I've done this, and I remember how excited I was at getting to try future releases they were, and they were really good too. So it's very exciting getting to try the whiskey as it is now, and then find out later where it is. Because then, and we talked about this, we had Claire Vokins on, and she wasn't keen on the word journey. But then you literally are on the journey with the whiskey. That's the thing, because you're trying it along the way. And usually you don't get to try it along the way.
Don't stop believing, Duncan.
Yeah. No, I agree with it. And that's why I enjoyed the 29th of May so much. It was just that look in your rearview mirror, let's look at where we are and let's look at the future. And it's such an unusual way to do a tasting. And not everybody's got capacity to do it because not everybody knows what their next 3 releases are, or even if they do, they don't have the confidence to say, let's try it. And we had a really, really friendly audience that day. It was 100 people that wanted to be at the festival, wanted to be at Ardnahoe. I mean, 80 quid for that tasting is probably one of the best value tastings that you could ever get. Yeah. And the guarantee of getting a festival bottling as well, and been first in the queue for it. But for me, it's a really, really good model to follow. Difficult to follow, but if you ever get a chance to sit down and say, here's our next 3 whiskies that are coming out over the next 7, 8, 9, 10 months, that's a real whiskey fan's kind of...
If ever there was an example of backing yourself and believing in what you've done properly, 100%. Like we're going, this is what we're doing, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. To take super that journey, Claire, is decent. So hats off to everyone.
Also, one of my favourite whiskies, PC10 is a 50%. And you're right, you mentioned earlier about 50%. Also, Prohibition 50%. 50% is just a great ABV.
Yeah.
It's just really good. I know we've got a car strength one here as well. It's going to be coming out.
Yeah.
But 50% is just such a wicked ABV. Right.
Yeah, but for
Perfect.
young guys like you, I've been drinking whiskey long enough where nobody would have touched a 50% whiskey. When I first started drinking whiskey, it was like 50%. Why would you drink that? It was 40 or 43. And then you jumped up to cask strength stuff, at late 60s. And to be honest, the market's changed. The kind of people's, the whiskey fans' palates have changed. The popularity for higher strength whiskies in certain countries is great. For me, it's great. I mean, if you gave me my perfect whiskey, it would be 50%. A lot of characteristics run about it, but 50% just seems to work. And that's why I'm such a fan of the old malt cask range, because I just feel as if they were so ahead of its time. But I've got to ask you guys, what was your favourite of the night? I know, Mike, you've not tried the festival bottling yet, but out the initial full release, or the cask strength, or the society bottling, body language leaked with the society bottling, to be honest.
Society, and then I'm going to say 1 and 2 are probably equal, because I've been drinking one throughout to see how it compares. And yeah, like Duncan said, that character is there with the other two, but 3, that combo is something special.
I'd go. I could score them more in a sort of blind drams type scoring system. I would score the one we finished on. That's the Ardnahoe Club one. Yeah,
number 3.
The one the quarter cast. I'd score that a solid 5 out of 5. Easy. I mean, easy, no questions. Doesn't matter where it comes in the order. I'd score it 5 out of 5. Love it.
Yeah.
Buy a bottle, hands down. I would score the Feis Ile one. It would be towards a 5 out of 5, 4 to 5 out of 5-ish area for me. Loved it. Very, very bold, very powerful. And I think the other ones, really great jams. Buy a bottle. Happy to have any of them is really the summary. But my 2 favourites would be those 2. I know it feels bad to say.
No.
One's at 50%, the club one, right? And one's, I think, isn't the Feis Ile one mostly bourbon cask?
Yeah, all bourbon cask. So
all bourbon cask.
So there you go. So bourbon, yeah.
I think it's more about the sort of drinkability of the whiskey overall, really. Would I have a bottle and would I drink any of them? Absolutely. It's just that I feel like I would cherish and go a bit doolally when visitors come around with either of the other 2 bottles. You know, when you do that kind of build up and you're getting excited and you're like ready to pour it for people and you're like already starting to talk gobbledygook to them to sort of, you're trying to build it up. I'd be like that.
Out of all the feedback, Duncan, that's the best bit, because you can, scores are subjective and know what your preference is there. See that excitement about wanting to give someone a whiskey, and that
and you're going,
I'd get really excited about showing those 2, and I think all of them are really, really good whiskies.
Well, welcome to my world. I'm excited about Friday, Saturday.
I bet you are. Half-time oranges. Yeah. We see how it goes. Let us know. And we remind guests that we would like to... What was the question you asked earlier about the... is any other distillery named...
Water source. So...
Secondary to that, what's your favourite chocolate bar to have with a whiskey? Make sure you tag Tipsy Midgie and what's Colin's full name, Mike?
Whiskey Forager.
Whiskey Forager, yeah.
That's great that you're having them on. It's really, really good. I look forward to that episode as well. But I've just went back to the Feis Ile bottle while you were summarising there, Duncan, and the whiskies are all good, but actually the developing the glass as well. I mean, that's probably about an hour and a half since the first sip that. It's even better. I'm really pleased with your feedback, and I know also, having known you for a wee period of time, that your feedback's genuine and authentic. And sincere.
Always. But here's the thing, because we knew you were going to be hosting us today, right, which we haven't done with anyone before, I didn't try...
We can drink it and
I
chill.
didn't try them ahead. Whereas usually I'll try them ahead. So just doing them all off. Usually I'll try them maybe a couple of hours before the pod or a day before. Yeah. And I'll write down my notes. And I'm much more of an introvert, even if people don't think that. So I'm much better just writing notes on my own. Like, I find it quite overwhelming talking to people and trying to do tasting notes at the same time. So God knows why I do blind drams. But going on Zoom, Twitter, talking to people and trying to post notes. But the thing I'm most excited about is there's still the option to buy 3 of these whiskies. Still the option. I'm still in the game for 3 of them. And I've got samples of all 4 to try left. And that means it's a good day.
Good. And listen, thanks very much for your tasting notes as well, because, and I know you've invited me to give you my experience and everything else, but I'm far more interested in what other people get and yourselves, because you're very floral in your language, very descriptive, and so that's been a really interesting feedback for us as well. But be assured, these are going to get bottled. As I said, there'll be a variation from what they taste like just now in the bottle, having come straight out a cask mix to what they're eventually going to be like, and whenever they get released, but you should recognise them, that's for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Super stuff.
No, good. Well, listen, thanks for the catch up and the opportunity to share them. It's you've seen a smile on my face, which is part of because I'm enjoying the
I
whiskey.
love seeing you smile, boys. When you
going.
come on the pod anytime, you're such a smiley, happy person. We need that in our lives.
No, but
Thanks for taking a couple of hours
Yeah,
out of the
thank you
sunbed
very
for
much.
us as well.
when you give,
it's
sharing whiskey's great, no, and especially when you don't have to pay for the bloody stuff, no, and somebody else gives you it. But sharing whiskey's great. That's what makes standing at a whiskey festival for 4, 6, or 8 or 10 hours with good people in front of you, and not everybody enjoys everything that you share with them, but the vast majority do, and it's a great experience. To use Claire's word from our previous podcast, she doesn't like journey. It's a great experience to have. No, and
Claire's gonna love the fact she's been to about 20 times on today's pod.
Yeah, I know.
Can I mention one word that she mentioned though about, was it Cockburn Aeneas or something?
Yes,
Plant, right, or something, or a tree.
Yeah, it reminded me about that after dinner thing where it's a medical convention. You might have to edit this out. You might have to edit this out, but it was the host of the medical convention got a wee bit tipsy, and instead of introducing Mr. Cockburn, the famous heart surgeon, he introduced Mr. Heartburn, the famous cock surgeon.
Hey!
Is that a joke? Is that real? That's amazing.
No, listen,
Either way, it's
doesn't
great.
matter.
It doesn't matter, Paul.
No, there is no way that's hitting the editing floor. That's staying in.
Here we go, smoking like an Ardnahoe. If you like the pod, thank you so much for listening to the pod. We really appreciate support. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. It helps to spread the pod word. Mike, over to you for closing.
Obviously, you can follow us in all the usual places at honestomalt.com, at honestomalt on Instagram, X, and everything else. Paul, quickly, if someone wanted to find you online personally, how would they find you?
Oh, well, first of all, go to Hunter Laing or Ardnahoe Distillery. And for me, I'm Whiskey Toasts on Instagram and that old-fashioned Facebook thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Happy days. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
I belong to Glasgow, dear old Glasgow town. I've just had some drams of the Glasgow Seb, and Libby brought them round. A cognac, a Tokai, a peated port, a manzanilla for me. Original peated or triple distilled, Glasgow's the dram for me.